Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this live. Good to have you on here. It's been a while since I had a live, so Happy New Year. I think my last live episode was back in October of last year. And it's been one thing or the other, but I hope you guys are doing well, especially if you're watching on the replay. Thank you for clicking the button. So we are talking about menopause. And I'm just going to get into that in a minute. But before we do that, my name is Dr. Sylvia. I'm a consultant in general practice based in the UK. So I work in the NHS. I'm also a private and online doctor. So I do share health information right here on YouTube and on my website, AskAwayHealth.org. You're welcome to check those out. And if you have questions or issues you'd like to have a conversation about with regards to your health, especially around women's health and sexual and reproductive health, please shoot a question down to us via our website, AskAwayHealth.org. So, hope everybody's doing well. Before we get right into the video, I would love to share with you and ask your support actually for a campaign that we're running here in the UK. Let me share my screen. So I'd love to get your support for this campaign. So please consider, if you would, signing this petition. We're trying to encourage the manufacturers of the contraceptive patch here in the UK to change the current patch from the rather obvious pink shade in which it is produced to one that's transparent and one that is suitable for anyone and everyone can use. So that makes it more equitable. So there's this campaign that's been running for about, going to a year, to soon be a year actually. And it's a petition to the manufacturer, Gideon Richter pharmaceutical company, to make the combined contraceptive patch inclusive. So currently, even for people with light or white skin, the patch is still quite visible. So we need something that can be discreet. And, we talk about contraceptives being available to everyone. So it's really important that everyone has that option if they want to go with that option, if they want to choose that. So please consider supporting us with that. Please consider supporting us by signing this petition. That would really be amazing. We've still got a few signatures to get to the goal of 2,500. But so I think I have the. Let me just double check. So I have the link to the. Where is it now? I have the link to the change.org page pinned up in the comment section. And I will put it in the link to this description, in the description box for this video once I'm done. Hope I don't forget. But if you just scroll up, you should find my link. Hi, Ashia Sumbai. Nice to see you. Where are you watching from? Thank you so much for joining the live. Good to see you. Good to have you on. Yeah, so please give us that support for the change.org. For the petition. It's called Clap Back on the Contraceptive Patch. There it is on the ticker. So the change.org link is in the description. So please show some support. Okay, brilliant. So today we are talking about menopause. So let me share my screen. And really, I came across this interesting study. And that's why I wanted us to have a conversation. So I'd really love to hear from you if you're someone who is interested in sort of new things coming up in science and curious about evolving scientific thinking. Because it's interesting because it might seem like something new or something out there, but in 10 or 15 years, it might be the practice, it might be the norm. This is how these things develop. So I came across this study recently, and we're going to go through it together. And then just sort of see what we think about what it says. Let me just remove myself from this so you can see the entire screen. Okay, so we're talking about menopause, and the question is, if scientists can delay menopause, is it something that we should choose to do? Isn't that going too far? And what are the pros and cons? So I'm going to give us a bit of the background. There's a very nice article on what's it called now, Medical News Today, which we're going to go through as well. And then, let's sort of think and, see what our opinions are. So please, if you've read this, if you've come across this, let me know in the comment section. Or if it's completely new to you and you're just hearing this for the very first time, then please listen and let's see what we think about it. So this is a paper that was published in the American Journal of Obstetrics and Gynaecology just last month in January, as you can see. A group of scientists who are proposing that they can delay the age of natural menopause by conducting transplantation of ovarian tissue. So let's break that down. So ovarian tissue transplantation, or removing a part of the ovary and freezing it, is not something that is new. It's something that's been done for some time. And the entire purpose is, for example, somebody who is ill with, say, like cancer, for example, and they're going to have chemotherapy or treatments that could affect the function of the ovary and render them infertile. So one way to solve the problem is to remove part of the ovary containing the follicles, which are going to mature into eggs, and then freeze them. And then after the person has had their chemotherapy or whatever treatment that potentially could have caused damage to the ovary, then the ovarian tissue is planted back into the person, and then they can go ahead to have their kids once they've recovered from the surgery. Once they've recovered from the cancer. So there's been some success in that. And so this group of scientists thought that they could apply this to menopause delay. And I think it's quite interesting. They designed a mathematical model. So this is not something that is happening at the moment. That is the delay of menopause. It's not going on now. What this study is based on a statistical model that helps them to make estimates based on information that we have at the moment. So this page we're looking at is the American Journal of Obstetrics and Gynaecology talking about the study. So they've put together a model where they are studying, they look at an individual's age, they look at the quantity of the ovarian tissue they remove from the individual, and then look at the age, the possible age, an estimate of the possible age at which they would have menopause. They're able to stretch it out. So we're going to look at their results in detail, but they said that for most women who are over the age of 40, ovarian tissue cryopreservation, so that is removing the ovarian tissue, freezing it, and then transplanting it back after some time, would result in a significant delay in menopause. The advantage is greater if the follicle loss after transplant can be minimized. As an example, delay in menopause for a woman with a median ovarian reserve who cryopreserves 25% of her ovarian cortex at the age of 25 years, and for whom 40% of follicles survive after transplantation, will be approximately 11.8 years. But this extends to 15.5 years if the survival is 80%. So what are they saying? They said they picked sort of the optimal age of fertility for women, sort of 25, early 20s. 25 is a good age to pick. They said if they take 25% of her ovary, specifically the ovarian cortex, which is where the follicles are located, and if they freeze that for some time and then plant it back, if 40% of the follicles survive that procedure, that woman would not experience menopause at the usual age of, what do we say? We say 45, 50, most women go into the menopause. They say she wouldn't experience menopause at that usual age. That actually her age of menopause would be extended another 11.8 or 12 years. So that's what this is saying. That's what all that bit has just explained. And that And that is if less than half of the follicles survive that transplant process. If more than 80% of the follicles survive, then her natural age of menopause is extended. So assuming this 25-year-old hits menopause, 50, let's say 50. That means with this particular model, what this model is saying is that she wouldn't get to menopause at 50. Instead, she'll become menopausal at 65. So this is the gist of this study. And if you looked at this paper and then you went on to, I don't know if it's going to show. I hope it's showing. Let me see. They have a model. Yes, this is the model. Let me see if you're also seeing it. Let me show you the model. So I'm going to share my screen again, and then I'm going to show you the model. It's really quite interesting. So this is the model. Hang on a second. Okay. I hope you can see this. Let me just double check. Yes. So you should be looking at the model with me. So this is the mathematical model that the scientists designed. And what it is showing us is basically what I've just explained. So if you have a woman who is, say, 25, and you remove a percentage of her ovary, and when you transplant the ovary back into her, if 80% of the egg follicles survive, then potentially she could have her age of menopause extended. So these are they sort of play with the numbers on this side. So if you change the amount of the cortex removed, and if you change the percentage of follicles that survive, if you change the age of removal for maybe, if you take this, let's say if we take this to 39, so you can see how it changes the extension of the menopause drops down to about 1.8 years. But let's say, so that's when the woman's age at removal is close to 40. Let's say we took it all the way down to 25. Oh, wow. See how it jumps? Mathematics is good. It's an interesting model. So, of course, the younger the woman, the better the quality of the follicles and the eggs and all that. So, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so this is where we're starting from. This is the starting point of this discussion. This is the potential, the possibility of science. And so if you look at the comment, sorry, I've just been going away. Let me just have a look. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is an article on Medical News Today, which I think looked at this very nicely and is asking questions about this, because while, you know, science can make all sorts of interesting advances, that's all very nice and good. What is the actual effect ethically and morally? And apart from that, really, is that what women really want? Which group of women would want menopause delayed? Which women will find a benefit in the delay of menopause? So let's have a look at this article. I'm going to share my screen again. And this is from Medical News Today. And this article has been written by, I think this is a biologist, Catherine Lang. And just the title is Ovarian Tissue Freezing May Help Delay and Prevent Menopause. So we've talked about the study, talked about what exactly the scientists are saying, we've talked about that. And Dr. Robin Noble, Chief Medical Officer at Let's Talk Menopause, says, this is very interesting data on the forefront of science. Cryopreservation of the ovaries, especially useful for people undergoing chemotherapy and radiation for cancer treatment. These techniques can protect and preserve the ovarian tissue for reimplantation. The modeling predicting how long menopause can be delayed is interesting, but not currently useful in practice. So, okay, so that is Dr. Noble's view. I'd love to hear what you guys think, really, you know, I'd love to hear what you guys think. So, of course, this is not applicable to somebody over the age of 40, assuming this particular technique or procedure was available. What would make a woman want to delay her menopause? Why would a woman want to delay her menopause? Why would she want to continue having menstrual periods, assuming it was possible and it worked the way that they're saying? We've not even talked about possible complications of this procedure. Why would you, in very good health, you have no medical conditions, under the age of 40, what would make you want to go through this procedure? Because potentially you could delay menopause. Now, many women, women's experience of their menstrual cycle and their reproductive health is all different, from women who have different medical conditions like fibroids and endometriosis to those who don't but still end up having maybe challenging menstrual issues, very heavy periods, and having to manage their periods with different options, maybe having to go on the pill or some form of birth control just because they've got heavy periods. Not because there's anything particularly, not because there's any specific pathology or disease, but because they just have, imbalanced hormones and they struggle with their periods. So would that category of women want to delay menopause? You'd think that they'd be so happy when they get to the end, when they get to menopause, that thank goodness it's all over. I can breathe a sigh of relief, no longer having all this trouble with heavy periods. And some women might think actually that I'm looking forward to getting to menopause. I don't have to wear sanitary products. I don't have to worry about 5 or 6 or 7 days of the month, and all the bits and pieces that go with that. So there are a few reasons why many women are just happy to get to menopause. They're happy to go through their reproductive life and have their kids and then get to menopause. But on the other hand, there's some women who don't have troublesome periods, and there's some women who, for some reason, haven't had their kids by their 40s or their late 40s. And this might be of interest, because if they're delaying menopause, it means that they're saying that they're extending a woman's fertility. So the possibility of being able to have a baby will be much more common or much more higher than it is now, or by the time a woman gets into her 50s. I don't know if you get what I mean. That if they're able to extend the menopause age of a woman to her 60s, so that she doesn't hit menopause until she gets into her 60s or 65 or whatever, it means that they're extending her fertility. So this might be of interest to some people. So I can see how different groups might feel about this. But the question I have to ask myself is, to what end? And aren't we doing too much? Aren't we taking on too much? So if you read down the page, they talk about the process of ovarian transplanting. I mean, it's something that is being done, like I've said, and it is the success rate. I don't know what the success rate is, but apparently it is more likely to be successful if the ovarian tissue harvesting is done in somebody who is young, which makes sense, between the ages of 21 and 40. You saw what I did with the model, that when you increase the age, the the delay of menopause dropped down drastically. So it got to be somebody who is quite young. So which 25-year-old is sitting somewhere imagining that they want to go into menopause later? 25-year-olds, I mean, why would they want to go through those kind of procedures? See, the only people that I think might want to go through this procedure are those for whom it might not even be of any benefit, really. For example, and when I say the only people, and I'm not trying to downplay the procedure, I'm just trying to have a conversation, and I would love to see what people's thoughts are, whether you want to pop in your thoughts here as you're listening to me, or later on when you watch the replay. I'd love to hear from you guys. For somebody who doesn't have kids, and they're staring menopause in the face, sort of maybe in the next 5 or 6 years, that person would be interested in a delay on menopause. But the problem is, if they have this procedure, the success is probably going to be low. The rate of success would probably be low. So even for that purpose, it wouldn't be suitable. They might want to delay menopause for another 10 years to give them the chance now to have a child, but will that process work for them? So the success of the procedure depends on the age at which the transplant, the harvest is done, and it's the amount of the tissue that's taken, that's harvested. That makes sense. It also says if they do the transplants, if they do more than one transplant, is more likely to be successful. And of course, the number of follicles that survive after the transplant. So this is all that determines the success of the procedure. And I think this is one of the scientists, Prof. Octay. He says the younger the person, the larger the number of eggs she has, as well as the higher quality, as well as the high. The younger the person, the larger number of eggs she has, as well as the higher the quality of those eggs. Those are the things that encourage or make the procedure more successful. Okay. So I think we've talked about the procedure. So that's setting the stage. So we're asking the question, should menopause be delayed? What do you think? Should menopause be delayed? So menopause, as you heard from the clip I shared at the beginning, is a natural evolution of a woman's physiology. It's natural. According to the WHO, I think in 2021, over 26% of women were in perimenopause. So more and more women are surviving and experiencing menopause. And not every woman with menopause suffers symptoms, but a significant number of women do experience troublesome, distressing symptoms, which may require some form of intervention or treatment or the other. And the scientists in this wise are thinking that they could be helping women by delaying the onset of that situation, of that phase when some women go through distressing symptoms. But then I also have the same question to ask. How does a woman who's 25 or 30 or 35 know when she's going to go into the menopause, and if she's going to be in that group of women who experience distressing symptoms of menopause? Is it enough with the uncertainty in terms of responding to those two questions? Is it enough to go through this procedure, even if it's carried out with the best facilities and with the best surgical techniques, reducing any risk of infection, the usual complications of any surgical procedure, an invasive procedure? And I know that we're doing so wonderful things in today's medicine to reduce the risk of infection, the risk of bleeding, and so on. But why do it in the first place? Why expose someone to that in the first place? All right, so Dr. Robin Noble, who commented earlier and was asking whether this was something that we need. They go on to make a comment. They say, if we can adequately replace the hormones that they're referring to here are the low hormones that women who go through menopause experience. So if we can adequately replace these hormones, estrogen and progesterone, would we want to delay the time of natural menopause? Many women struggle with issues during their reproductive years: PCOS, endometriosis, fibroids, painful periods, heavy periods, undesired fertility, premenstrual dysphoric disorder. Will they want to prolong their cycles? I think not. Will they want to delay or avoid the symptoms of menopause? Very likely. And we can do that with menopausal hormone therapy without exacerbating those other symptoms, which seems like a reasonable argument, that now, so the focus is on women who actually have issues during their reproductive years, different conditions. And why on earth would such a person not want to get to menopause and just be done with all those stresses like heavy periods, PMT, premenstrual tension, that's premenstrual dysphoric disorder, on the spectrum of that condition, endometriosis, and so on. And if a woman wants to delay or avoid the symptoms of menopause, there's another way of doing it. You can deal with the symptoms of menopause with hormones. And they're suggesting that you can continue to do more and more research into the area of hormones for menopause, making them safer and more acceptable than what we have at the moment. And that's what science does, basically, continue to work on a particular treatment and continue to evolve until it gets to, you know, the best that you can have. And then there's another argument that they talk about here, and it's this bit. Let's see. Menopause is considered a normal part of human aging, not an illness or medical condition. So should it be delayed? Should we be tampering with nature in that sense? Many women welcome the end of their monthly periods, particularly those with menstrual disorders, and many cope with the symptoms of menopause without intervention. So I just want to interject here that only if the symptoms are very, very mild and they're not particularly distressing, please, because if they are distressing, we can do something about it. So please don't endure them in pain or in discomfort, whether it is hot flushes or night sweats or painful intercourse or painful sex or frequent urinary infections or mood problems, anxiety and brain fog and so on. Please, if it is distressing or affecting your quality of life, please, you do need to speak up. Okay, so many women, many women don't have issues. So for those who don't, good, fine. However, for others, perimenopause and menopause may mean several years of troubling symptoms that can affect the quality of life. As we live longer, many women will spend around a third of their lives post-menopausal, so they may wish to shorten that time. Apart from delaying symptoms, studies have shown that there may be other benefits to later menopause. So those who experience a later menopause have lower all-cause mortality and reduced risk of osteoporosis and a reduced risk of cardiovascular disease. However, they do have an increased risk of breast, womb, and ovarian cancer. So that's another thing to think about, that if you delay menopause, yeah, you may get some benefits. For example, a reduced risk of breaking bones, reduced risk of heart disease, because we do know that when women get into the menopause, again, because of the function of our hormones, there's an increased risk of fractures, of bone thinning that could lead to fractures. There's also an increased risk of heart problems, heart attacks and strokes. So you would argue that, well, to prevent that, there is some value to delaying menopause. But there's also the increased risk of breast cancer that goes along with that. So the other question you want to ask is, well, even if you want to get rid of those risks, you need to go down the route of ovarian transplant, going through that procedure to accomplish those goals? And the question again I have in my head is, should a 25 or 30-year-old woman be considering that? Now, if a 25 or 30-year-old woman is sitting considering freezing their eggs, okay, because they're in a very demanding job, or they're not yet in the relationship where they feel they do want to have a partner. Can you imagine what I'm saying? They're not in that relationship where they feel they want to have a child with that partner. That hasn't happened to them yet, and they're thinking ahead and saying, right, if this doesn't happen until I get to 40 or 45, then I want to have a plan B in my back pocket, which makes sense, so that, you know, for those who can access that and afford that, then, you know, egg freezing is an option. And, you know, many women do that. So that focus is specifically because you're looking at fertility, because by the time a woman gets to 40 or 45, the chances of pregnancy, natural pregnancy, of course, are a lot less compared to when she's 25 or 30. So the question I have to ask again is, why would a woman age 25 or 30 be thinking about delaying menopause? What is that the best way to solve the potential problem, which she doesn't even know if she's going to have that problem, mind you, she doesn't even know if she's actually going to have a problem with menopause. So it's an interesting, I completely agree, it's an interesting study, because science is always evolving. People are always thinking, people are always wondering of, what else you can do to help to improve the quality of life, improve how human existence. That's great. But it's also good to question, but what is the value of this? What is the value? Perhaps there's a small group of people, and I'd really love to hear back from anyone who's listening. After giving this some thought, this is a new study that's just been published in the American Journal of Obstetrics and Gynaecology, where some scientists have modeled some findings and have come up with a potential way of delaying the onset of menopause, and are suggesting that by transplanting part of the ovary, so by removing part of the woman's ovary and freezing it for some time, and then transplanting at a later stage, it is possible to delay her menopause. So she stays fertile. Technically, she stays fertile for a lot longer, and does not experience menopausal symptoms for several more years. Those are the, broadly, those are the advantages. Okay, so we're looking at the comment from Dr. Noble, who, let me see where. So Dr. Noble is a chief medical officer at an organization known as Let's Talk Menopause. And so they've been looking at the pros and cons, and they go on to say, menopause is a natural stage of life. It is not a disease. It is not an illness any more than aging is an illness. After menopause, we see significantly increased risks for cardiovascular disease, bone loss, diabetes, obesity, colon cancer risks, which seem to be mitigated with MHT, that's hormone therapy. Okay, and people need better information about the options for management of this stage of life, so they can be empowered by the latest research to make the best decisions for themselves, as there are many treatment options available for the symptoms of menopause. So, and this is the bit I think I missed this bit. So, do we need cryopreserved ovaries to accomplish these goals? So, when we're thinking about managing menopause, currently we have different things. We have both drug intervention and non-drug intervention, lifestyle changes, diet, psychotherapy, that is talking therapy, alternative medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, and then conventional drug treatments, including HRT and some other alternatives, drug alternatives to HRT. We've got a wide, expanding portfolio of things that we can use to deal with menopause, depending on a woman's symptoms. But these scientists are now suggesting that we could add on to this ovarian transplant as a treatment. That's what they're saying, really. It's that we can add that on to a treatment, but that women have to consider it in their mid-20s to very, very early, or before they are 40, they have to consider this as an option. So Dr. Noble says, do we need cryopreserved ovaries to accomplish these goals? With hormone therapy, we can give back some of the hormones, that is the low hormones of menopause, at various doses, with the option of tailoring to the symptoms and the goals of the person, understanding the risks and benefits of various treatment options. MHT avoids the cyclic symptoms that will be present in the case of preserved ovaries. True. So if you still had your ovaries, or if you still had the ovarian function in your 60s, you would still be experiencing all these things: bleeding, mood changes, bloating, breast tenderness, which most women would have expected to have be done with. Excuse me, I had to get a drink. So, but the option of surgery to remove and then replace cryopreserved ovarian tissue should not be taken lightly, as it does involve repeated abdominal or keyhole, that's laparoscopic surgery. So a woman will need to think carefully about whether for her, the benefits of delaying menopause outweigh the risks. And so you see, I asked that same question, that at the age of 25, potentially what is happening in a woman's head between 25 and 35, let's say, for most women. Of course, there are certain instances where it may be an option. Never say never. And, I don't know everything. I'm just trying to look at the possibilities here. To some extent, there might be some ways that a person could predict when they go into menopause. There's some markers that, some people might go into menopause early or later. But you can't at the age of 25 actually determine that you're going to suffer very, very bad hot flushes or other symptoms of menopause. You may not at the age of 25 or even 35 be able to say, I've not had kids, so I'm not going to have kids for the next 5 or 6 years, and therefore delaying menopause is the way to go. I think that people will more likely move towards egg freezing, like I suggested. So I think Dr. Noble, I think she had the last word, didn't she? And I think she said it quite well. People need better information about the options for management of this stage of life so they can be empowered by the latest research to make the best decisions for themselves, as there are many treatment options available for the symptoms of menopause. So I think she said it quite nicely. So guys, what do you think? Let me know in the comment section below, please. We've been talking about delaying menopause. We've talked about what it involves. There's a new study that's just been published. And I will share the links as well when I tidy up my description box for this video. What do you think? It's a new study. The technology is not exactly new, because they've been doing ovarian transplants, and we said why they've been doing them. So it's not something that is brand new. People, for example, who have cancer and are going to have toxic chemotherapy or toxic treatments that can affect the ovarian tissue, some of it is removed until after they've had their treatment, and then it's put back. And that process appears to delay menopause. That is what this model has demonstrated. And so these scientists are wondering whether this would be of value in the bundle of treatment options we have for dealing with menopause. So it's something to think about. Anyway, guys, this is where I'm going to round off. Thank you so much for listening. I know there are a few of us who've been on here. Thanks for listening. Let me know your thoughts about this. It would be great if you would give this video a like for me as well. Show me some support. Thank you so much for those who've been engaging with our recent videos. We've shared a few things around menopause and pregnancy-related issues. So please have a look at our playlists and the different videos of the channel. Don't forget that if you've got any specific questions you want some help with clarifying or understanding, please visit AskAwayHealth.org. Apart from the email information service that you can use to send a specific question, we've also got our symptom checker tool. So please visit the website, browse around, say hello. It would be great to hear from you. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining in today. And I'm going to sign off now. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.